You know, a lot of people don't think that sweet potatoes will do very well in Utah, but we've grown them before and they do great. One of the most important things to do is to heat up your soil as early as possible. So 2 weeks before I'm going to plant my sweet potatoes, and I'm generally shooting for around Memorial Day to plant my sweet potatoes. We need that soil to really warm up. So they're very frost sensitive, so we're going to protect them as well too, but we want that soil to warm up. I took my knife and just cut a little X in my weed barrier, and we can pull that weed barrier back, and we got a perfect spot for planting our sweet potato. Once we get it planted, we can let the flaps come back to the plant and still generate some more heat, but generating some heat in the soil is essential for being successful with sweet potatoes. Now with these sweet potatoes, we actually started these ourselves with a hydroponic cloning system, and what I did is I took some cuttings off of a sweet potato, and we did that on a Saturday night, and put them into these little styrofoam discs that will hold the cuttings, and then we put it into a hydroponic bath so that the root area where we want those roots to develop is down in this water the entire time. It has an air stone in there, it has a pump that circulates the water, and so those cuttings just sit right down into the water until the plant roots. And within just a couple days, we've got a bunch of roots that came onto the cuttings, and then within about a week there were even more roots, and so it took about 2 weeks to get them to fully root out. And once they fully rooted out, we took those out of the hydroponic bath and put them into peat pots and put in a nice soil mix to help those continue to produce more roots. Watered it with the kangaroos, and they have transplanted perfectly. So we put them into these little peat pots with that seed starting mix, and I've had these outside for about 5 to 7 days to get used to being outside before we transplant them into their new location. So they've just about rooted into this peat pot completely now, and it's time to get them transplanted to their new location. So what I'm going to do is dig a small hole here, pull some of the dirt out, and then we're going to amend the soil just a little bit with some coconut coir, which will help the soil retain some moisture. So we got to make a big enough hole for our plant to fit in there. And then I like that coconut coir. That expanded coconut coir is a great soil amendment, helps the soil retain moisture like crazy. It doesn't break down like peat moss. It sticks around a lot longer, but it's wonderful for holding extra moisture. I'm just going to work that into the existing soil. Now with these peat pots, we don't even have to take them out of the peat pot. Usually what I'll do is I'll just tear the top edge of the peat pot off, just like that, because we don't want to damage that root system, but we want to take that top edge off. So I'm just going to tear that top. There we go. That top edge. Now these have only been in these pots for about a week, so we want to keep them in the pot so that it doesn't damage the root system, doesn't disturb the root system, and they'll transplant a lot better. So we can keep it right in that same pot that it's been in for most of its life. And we're going to use that soil that we pulled out of the hole with the composted coconut coir. Put a little bit more coconut coir in around it, help it retain that moisture. And that's it for the sweet potato. They'll go like crazy, and if we can protect them a little bit in the fall so they have a little bit longer growing season, then they'll produce potatoes like crazy underneath the weed barrier. They'll vine out and spread all over the place just like a ornamental sweet potato would, and it's going to take off like mad. A little organic fertilizer. This is our all-purpose fertilizer from Natural Guard. It's a blend of a lot of different natural ingredients that have some great nutritional value for your plants. It's got beneficial microbes, mycorrhiza, archaea in there. We can just like sprinkle that on the ground around the plant, and it's going to feed it for the first 4 weeks or so, and then I like to do it again. We're going to put about a tablespoon, maybe a little bit more, in around that plant, kind of work it into the soil, and then to really get it reestablished, I'm going to water it again with the kangaroos. So the kangaroos really helps with transplant shocks, you won't have nearly as many plants that struggle after transplanting because it damages and disturbs those roots. But we'll water with the kangaroo roots for the next 2 or 3 waterings after transplanting to get it to reestablish and get the root system growing again like crazy. So the kangaroo roots is essential. And then the complete disease control is a beneficial bacteria. It's a good bacteria instead of a bad bacteria, and it kills all the diseases in the soil around the plant, fights those diseases off so the plants won't be disturbed or bothered by those diseases or attacked by those diseases, and it will prevent powdery mildew and a lot of other diseases that might affect our sweet potato plant. So I've mixed that up in a watering can, and you want to water that plant so it saturates the soil down all the way through. The seed starting mix that we used is very, very porous, and so we want to make sure and hydrate that all the way through. Once that plant gets really hydrated, then we'll put some protection on the top, a little aquadome to help the plant, protect it from the wind, from the sun, from the cold if it happens to get colder. And I'll leave that on until the plant really starts to run, which will only take a couple weeks. Then we'll take that off and let it just be out in its own environment after that. So a lot of fun doing the sweet potatoes, very easy to do, but it's amazing how quickly you can root those when you use one of those hydroponic rooting systems. Makes for really fast cuttings. The plant's established a lot faster, and we can get those outside. This is probably 3.5 weeks, and it's ready to be planted outside, and that's just from a little small cutting that had no roots on it to begin with. So a lot of fun doing sweet potatoes. Can't wait to harvest some sweet potatoes this fall.